Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. The ultimate incentive experience awaits at the end of the Earth, Antarctica, featuring Robert Cow, Global Director of Charter and Incentive Sales for Hurtigruten, and Kristen Ertz, Sales Director, Canada. I'm Barbara Scafidio, the editor of Prevue, and I'm delighted to be your moderator today. I'm going to keep the instructions very brief so we can get to the presentation. We will be recording this for you, so don't worry if you miss something, you will get a link to the recording. As with all of our webinars, we will offer CEUs for your participation. Please do ask questions. That's what our experts are here for, and we will hold a Q&A at the end of the session. They've put together some great handouts. They are also on your console and can be downloaded. Do send in your RFP by June 15th, and you will be entered into a raffle for a $200 gift card. And that is it for me. So I'm going to send it over to Robert to say a few words, and we'd like to learn a little bit about all of you with a couple of poll questions. So Robert, take it away.
Well, thank you, Barbara, and a very good afternoon to each and every one of you. As Barbara mentioned, my name is Robert Cow. I am Global Director for Charter and Incentives here at Hurtigruten. I joined the company exactly 2 years ago, and I am very proud to say that my love and passion for the brand has grown stronger. I've been in the incentive industry for more than 15 years and can tell you that selling this brand is as rewarding and fulfilling to me as it is to a trip winner. Why? Mainly because it checks off a lot of the boxes as it relates to that new, unique, off the beaten path of great quality, and most important, a safe place. What a destination incentive should be about and what it should include, right? In order to reward your most loyal and with what they deserve. We're glad you decided to join us today, and so pleased to know that you want to learn more about Antarctica. I am sure that, like myself, a few years back, you had a lot of questions about the destination, and you really want to see for yourself how it could work and how it could fit your next incentive program. I can assure you it will be the best incentive your company has ever had. It will be both memorable, experiential, and immersive, and it will stay in the minds of all of your qualifiers and trip winners for a lifetime. This has to be at the very top of any company's expected ROE list. I hope you agree. As the most remote continent, Antarctica is unlike any other place. From stunning frozen landscapes with icebergs and glaciers to the most incredible wildlife like penguins, seals, and whales, it is a bucket list destination without a doubt, which happens to be one of the safest, I repeat, and most unique, rewarding incentive destination out there today. It is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Kristen Ertz, Sales Director for Canada. I asked Kristen to please join us today to share all of her passion and knowledge about Antarctica. I'd like Kristen to say hello.
Thank you so much, Robert. Geez, what a welcome. Thank you very much for having me today. I
think we're having technical difficulties with the audio. Well, Kristen will have a chance to say hello at the beginning, at the end, or as we continue, rather. Can everybody else?
Continent last year, and I am just completely thrilled to be able to share my experience and give you a little more insight about what it's like to actually cruise and be on an expedition in Antarctica.
Terrific, Kristen. So before we get started, would you like to run the poll questions and learn a little bit more about the audience?
I think it sounds good.
Okay. Number one, for everyone, have you been on an expedition cruise before? Yes or no? I'm eager to see the results. And they will be up in just a moment. Wow, okay. So I would say we have a lot of opportunity to teach people about expedition cruises today, with 97% of the audience having not been on an expedition cruise. If we can move to the next poll. Have you ever utilized a cruise ship for one of your incentive programs? Yes or no, please. And the answer should be right up. Okay, so almost a third of the audience has used cruises for programs. 69% no, but obviously quite interested. And we have one more question right now, and then we'll move into Kristen's great presentation. Have you chartered a full ship for any of your programs in the past? So this is much more of a niche opportunity, yes or no? Eager to hear. Okay, so 18% of the audience has and 82% not yet. And maybe that'll change after today. So on that note, we will turn it over to Kristen. Thank you.
Actually, it's gonna come back to me. And right before we set sail for Antarctica with Kristen, I would like to share an overview of the pillars that make Hurtigruten a trusted advisor for you to partner with for your next incentive program, which will then be followed also by me of a virtual tour of the ship and the facilities. We are a world leader in polar cruises. What does that translate to? 125 years of experience and know-how in sailing polar waters with a deep understanding of how to navigate through these waters. As it relates to the itineraries, well, we are proud to say that we offer the most choices when it comes to polar and also other exotic and unique destinations such as Antarctica, Alaska, Canada, New England, Iceland, Norway, and more. A big pillar of the product and the overall experience is the expedition team, a handpicked, inspiring expedition team to share all of their knowledge about the landscapes and the wildlife, ensuring that everyone has as an authentic, as an immersive experience to connect with their inner explorer. Something that's really, really key, big today in terms of how the world is changing and how our industry is shifting. Our smaller and intimate ships, fleet of vessels, provide an amazing opportunity for that smaller to mid-sized group program. Our vessels accommodate anywhere between 200 to 500 plus guests with modern amenities comparable to those that you find on the larger ships. And suffice to say, ideal for exclusivity, AKA full ship charter for the 18% that has chartered a ship. Exceptional value. Our experience provides an unrivaled expedition cruise experience that comes with an abundance of memorable and lifetime experiences. Really, we present this as the ultimate and most premium all-inclusive expedition cruise. Sustainability commitment. We take this very, very seriously, and we're very proud for how we preserve and how we remain a leader in this field with a deep commitment to preserving polar environments and all the destinations that we sail in. The informal and most comfortable atmosphere. This is something that comes from our guests. And they say that a Hurtigruten experience and an adventure is best experienced in a warm sweater, not in a black tie. Next slide, please. As for the guest adventure, in terms of the inclusions and the optimal value that we provide, we offer a rich program of included activities that are designed to immerse every guest in our destinations, which includes the all small boat cruising and onshore exploration with the expedition team. They're there with you the entire time and follow your itinerary. Very important to keep in mind, especially as it relates to groups and charters. As far as the actual gear and the equipment that you require to perform all these great included activities, these are all provided on board. We have the loaning of the boots, trekking poles, and all equipment that's related for this. Every single guest on board our ship will receive a complimentary wind and water resistant jacket. You'll see an actual photo of that later, and Kristen will show you a little bit more. There's a lot that goes on not only off the ship, but on board the ship as well. We have a ton of onboard activities that are provided to provide additional knowledge and insight as it relates to history, biology, geography, geology, and culture, just to name a few of the fields. Our science program is something that we're going to be touching on later on as well. Throughout the event, you can experience and you can expect to have a welcome event, a daily and evening gathering, and also a next day preparation with the expedition team, which makes the experience far more engaging. There will be opportunities for your guests to dine with the expedition team throughout the voyage, as well as our cruise officers on board. The photo lecture, including camera adjustments and tips and tricks, is a big part of the cruise itself, especially in this day and age of Instagrammable moments. You cannot go down there and you cannot experience something like this and not have an actual perfect photograph almost. And of course, there will be a farewell event. This next column brings me back to what I said about providing the most premium all-inclusive expedition cruise. Our premium onboard comfort really encompasses every single component and element that you can probably relate to when it comes to luxury cruising, but not for the same price. All of the meals include beverages during lunch and dinner, which is house wine and beer, sodas, and mineral water. We will offer coffee and tea throughout the day. There's also early morning and afternoon snacks offered in addition to breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Complimentary Wi-Fi is included for all of our guests, and gratuities are neither required nor expected. So this brings me to the virtual tour. I'd like to welcome you aboard to Fridtjof Nansen, which is the vessel that we're going to be featuring today for Antarctica. She does a series of sailings throughout the season, and it's performed on this amazing new technology, hybrid electric powered. She happens to be a sister vessel to the Roald Amundsen. Roald Amundsen entered service in 2019. The Fridtjof Nansen was delivered to us right at the beginning of March last year when the pandemic broke. So I like to say she still smells and is new. She is an amazing state of the art that combines all of the 125 years of experience and know-how with a really cutting edge technology. Some basic facts to give you about the vessel. Next slide, please. The Fridtjof Nansen is a 265 all outside stateroom accommodation that is comprised with more than 50% of the inventory with private verandas or balconies. There are 3 different tiers, and this makes it really appealing and attractive for either a large incentive program or a multi-tier incentive where you need to make different distinctions according to the qualifications. You've got as many as 53 expedition suites that range in size from 215 to 517 square feet, 89 Arctic Superior ranging in size from 161 to almost 300 square feet, and then 122 Polar outsides that go from 180 to almost 250 square feet. The ship itself offers 3 restaurants, 1 main, and 2 additional dining venues. One is a specialty restaurant. We'll see a picture of it in a second. The Science Center, the Explorer Lounge. These are all multifunctional spaces on board the vessel. Observation deck. We have a gym and wellness center, sauna, infinity pool, 2 hot tubs, and the Explorer boats that we use. Something that I like to point out is the size of the vessel. Even though she carries 530 passengers, she's only 20,934 registered tons. She's only 459 feet in length. To kind of put it in perspective, 20,000 tons versus 225,000 tons that are being built today. It's an ideal vessel for the smaller, intimate, and much more safe type of environment. Next slide, please. Here's the Explorer Lounge. The Explorer Lounge is a bar that offers table service and cocktails, beers, and wine during the day, as well as a variety of snacks during the morning and in the afternoon. The bar operates between 11 in the morning all the way to midnight. We also serve early bird breakfast and the daily snack between 5 and 7. As it relates to charter and group availability, parts of the lounge may also be reserved for private events when you're not chartering the entire vessel, and that is somewhere between 100 and 150 guests. That's just the norm. Suffice to say, one of our charter experts, our charter specialists, will work with each and every one of the programs according to their needs. The full Explorer Lounge and bar cannot be reserved, I repeat, unless the entire vessel has been chartered. And in terms of AV capabilities, the ship is equipped with most state-of-the-art. We've got multiple screens throughout the lounge itself that can also be utilized and customized for groups that can be divided into the different zones to make sure that some of the content can be seen by everyone. The seating capacity is 330. Obviously, this can also combine with other areas around the ship for a standing reception in which we can maximize the capacity. In all, we have 8,590 square feet of space in this area. And I'm going to show you some actual photos next of the actual lounge itself. You've probably heard, seen, or can relate to an expedition vessel as something of Spartan type. In this case, it is not. We do not present ourselves in the luxury category. It's not who we are. It is a very high-end upscale experience. However, many of our clients have told us this is luxury. So it's all how it can be perceived. It's a beautiful vessel. It's decorated using very light contemporary Norwegian colors and materials. Next slide, please. These are some photos of the lounge itself to kind of give you some perspective. The Explorer Lounge is a signature lounge we have on all of our vessels. It's at the top of the vessel, and it includes panoramic views of all the surroundings. So imagine yourself going through the Drake Passage or going through a Norwegian fjord or a Chilean fjord, having this amazing, breathtaking views all around. And this actually holds true throughout the vessel. Not something you see on today's new builds. As you know, most ships are being built today, maximizing every possible area of real estate for revenue streams. So you take away all the views. You're not going to find that on our ships. Next slide, please. Here's a picture of the bar, again, located inside the actual Explorer Lounge. Next is the Science Center. The Science Center is really the heart of the expedition vessel. It provides a lot of interaction between the guests and the expedition team. There's many different types of spaces within the actual center itself that can accommodate different group sizes. There's a dedicated science area that has microscopes and a library, reading areas, and there's the actual lecture space where the lectures are hosted throughout the day. It has two main rooms that can be set up with multiple and different configurations. In terms of the availability for a charter, obviously the entire vessel is for you. If it's not a charter and if it's a smaller block, the Science Center cannot be reserved for private events. But again, if you have a full ship charter, we will work with you on that. Capacity in here is 150 passengers in the full lecture area, but we can also accommodate as many as 250 with seating that extends outside of the lecture area as we can stream from one of the screens outside. And in the area itself, we have 4,306 square feet. Here you have a picture of the actual center with the state-of-the-art microscopes, a very interactive experience overall. There at the back, you can see those large screens that can actually be used as for those that are be sitting outside, or it can actually flip on the inside and either into one big room for the 150, or we can actually subdivide those into two different rooms. More of the Science Center. And Kristen has been recently she's been to Antarctica, and a lot goes on there. Maybe I can ask Kristen to share a little bit about some of the unique things that we do in the Science Center. Kristen, can you do that?
Sure, no problem. So what you're actually seeing here is a bone clone, and we have several of these located throughout the Science Center that our expedition team can speak to in terms of, matching it up with some of the different types of whale species that we might see when we are in destination. We, of course, encounter a lot of bird species as well. And we also participate totally voluntary if our guests wish to in citizen science programs and our science boat. And with our citizen science programs, this is a way for our guests to actually help in the collection of research data for different research associations we partner with around the world. Because especially for some of the smaller associations we work with, they can't necessarily charter an entire ship for an entire season in Antarctica in order to collect their data. So they take advantage of partnerships like us at Hurtigruten Expeditions to help them collect that data. One of my personal favorites is our Happy Whale program, where if our guests take a picture of a whale tail, which is their version, their identifying marker, like us as humans with our fingerprints, we can upload that photo into the Happy Whale database. And using all kinds of recognition technology, the database can actually tell whether or not that whale exists in their collection. And if it does, we're actually able to learn about, the age of the whale, the type of the whale, approximate migratory pattern of the whale. Does it tend to travel with family in a larger pod? And what's even more neat is if that whale isn't recognized in the system, then you who took the photo get to actually name the whale and be the one to add it to the Happy Whale database, where it will forever live on with the name that you provided it. And you can also sign up for email updates about your specific whale. So even after you've left the Hurtigruten expedition, you can learn more about, where your whale is still traveling in the world. And I'll just go back to a couple of the slides where our microscopes are. So we have biological and geological microscopes on board, and we tend to collect items that are reflective of the destination. So part of that is going out in our science boat, and we might have a lot of history behind, the food chain of out when it comes to phytoplankton sampling. So these are just a few of the different activities that we take guests through, both in our science center, and we also extend the science portion of the experience both up on deck when we're doing on-deck guiding with the expedition team, and both ashore and in our explorer boats as well.
And that brings us to a very special area of the ship, which is the main restaurant on. On is the venue where we serve both breakfast, lunch, and dinner in a very social and informal, but yet a modern and accessible way. The food served and on is inspired by the areas that we sail in. And I have to tell you, having been in the cruise industry for so many years, and I know I'm probably biased to this, it is one of the best I've ever had in terms of the quality, the flavor, and even the presentation. The standard service for the restaurant includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And again, this is the regular meal times according to the program. When you charter a ship for the entire vessel, you have exclusivity. It provides a lot of flexibility and things that you can customize, and we'll touch on that a little bit at the end. The restaurant itself has also AV capabilities, including a mic and also an LED screen, which normally displays the menu, but it can also be customized for specific contents of an actual program for a full ship charter. The capacity on the vessel is 220 guests. We've been talking a little bit about full chartering the vessel. The way that we normally would operate that is twofold. Either we can do a first and second seating option, or what works best is an open seating throughout a specific time that can accommodate every guest on board. Overall, 5,382 square feet in on itself. It's a beautiful restaurant. We have some actual photos, and this goes back to saying or showing you about the views all around the vessel from wherever you are. You will never be deprived from the beautiful surrounding as your ship is sailing either in the along the waters or getting into a beautiful port. There's a lot of different settings: tables for 2, table for 4, table for 6, 8, 10, and 12. Then the other restaurant is Fredheim. Fredheim is an all-day restaurant that serves food in a dynamic and playful display that provides for a quick bite and formal yet a sit down. This actually operates through the entire day. Again, for a group, not a charter, it cannot be reserved for private events because it serves as an all-day dining. But for a full ship charter, you can do a lot with the 3 restaurants on board, including a dine around, or simply just combining and making different things throughout the event for meal times. Seating capacity here is 60 guests. And we have some actual photos of the restaurant. Again, views on the right of the ocean. Very modern, very contemporary, very colorful. Kristen, you recall what you had there the last time? I know what I had.
I think I tried everything on the menu. I would say personal favorite was the milkshakes. And then I absolutely loved the dumplings and the hamburgers and the gourmet hot dogs as well.
That was mine. I was going to say the gourmet hot dogs. If that paints a picture for those of you that are hot dog lovers out there, it is a very gourmet hot dog. Very, very delicious. That brings us to Lindstrom, our specialty, fine, premium Norwegian dining that we are so proud of. The food is delectable. The service there includes a breakfast that is only available to suite guests. And it has no additional premium for it. It's included in the price. Again, if this is part of a larger block. The dinner itself is available to all guests on board. Still, the suite guests have that included in their premium. Additional non-suite guests can actually pay an upcharge for use of that facility itself, for having a really nice sit-down meal. When you do the full ship charter, that changes the entire story because it actually has to do with how the organizer wants to provide that. I've seen it done where top qualifiers get invited once or twice in the week and things like that. So again, there's a lot that we can do and be creative with. We've got also the same type of AV capabilities for the most part, a mic, but there's a lot that we can do on board. And the capacity here is also 60 guests. We have some actual photos. Those are renderings, but these photos will actually show you what the restaurant looks like. It's really, really beautiful. And the food is delicious. And last but not least, at the very after the ship, we have an infinity pool with the 2 hot tubs. And now we have to hurry up on deck because we're about to set sail to Antarctica with Kristen. I hope you enjoy this really brief tour.
All right. Thank you very much, Robert. So now that you have seen sort of what happens on the inside of the ship and how the Antarctic experience can unfold in there, I'm going to introduce you to what the destination itself is all about. Antarctica is the coldest, windiest, highest, driest continent on Earth. I mean, if that doesn't sell it, I don't know what does. But why would you want to go to Antarctica? You know, after hearing a statement like that, you think, oh my gosh, it's way too cold for me. It really is one of those once in a lifetime opportunities and experiences. I have had the opportunity to travel to over 70 different countries. And for me, Antarctica was actually the 7th continent I needed to tick off my bucket list. And I can honestly, truly say I have not encountered anything like this in all of my travels. It really is just such a wow factor place to visit. Somebody had once told me that once you've been down to Antarctica, you will have no idea how to actually, share words about it. And that couldn't be more true. There are no words that do this destination justice. It is just one of those awe-inspiring experiences. So for me, it was a personal goal, to tick off that 7th continent. For others, it may be just traveling where very few have been in the world. They say about less than 2% of the world's population has actually been down to Antarctica. So there's a certain draw to be able to, travel to a place where very few have ever been in the past. And it might just be looking for a different type of travel connection. Maybe we're looking to get away from the larger cities and monuments and just trying to experience, the beauty, the landscapes, the wildlife, and just that peace and quiet that you can actually gain when sailing down in Antarctica. And as you heard Robert speak to, we are an education focus over entertainment. So if you are used to traveling on some of the larger ship experiences, you won't find things like casinos and Broadway shows. We are about, our science center and our lectures, and really honing in on and celebrating the polar explorers of the past. When we look at a couple of our ships, for example, just the names themselves, the MS Roald Amundsen. Roald Amundsen is a famed Norwegian explorer. He was the first to make it down to the South Pole in a race against Scott, unbeknownst to Scott at the time. He was the first to find the full transit all the way through the Northwest Passage, and the first to have been documented to have made it to the North Pole in his airship. So a lot to be celebrated from this one particular explorer, and we touch on so many of those different types of explorers and their stories and history amongst the Hurtigruten expedition's experience. But most importantly, when going to a destination like Antarctica, you need to go in there with a flexible scheduling and traveling with an open mind. I think it captures it perfectly to say it's all about experiencing nature on nature's own terms. Mother Nature is 100% in control in this destination, and we have to adjust our scheduling and our opportunities and experience around whatever it is that Mother Nature decides to offer up on each day. So why travel to Antarctica with Hurtigruten expeditions? We have over 127 years experience in the polar regions. We started as a company back in 1893 and actually started our first polar expedition just 3 years later in 1896 in Svalbard. This really is expertise that only comes with experience. You will notice a lot of new operators coming into the game of polar regions, and especially going down into Antarctica. But really put your faith and trust into an operator like that, like us, who have been in Antarctica for almost 20 years. We are members and long-standing members, and even on the boards of the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators, which I'll explain a little bit more about what they're about. And as well, we are very focused on sustainability, especially when you're talking about a destination like Antarctica. That's probably one of the most environmentally sensitive regions in the world. Be confident in knowing that you are sending your guests on the lowest possible CO2 footprint of all voyages to Antarctica when they're on board a Hurtigruten expedition. And as you heard Robert mention, we are a very comfortable, casual atmosphere on board. So after a day of exploring, there's nothing better than coming on board, maybe throwing on your robe and going into the panoramic sauna, or hopping into the hot tubs, or maybe having an optional treatment in our wellness center, or, just a casual, cozy beverage up in the Explorer Lounge by our faux fireplaces before you head to dinner. And of course, education is the main focus on board. We really want our guests to be destination ambassadors once they have left a Hurtigruten expedition. And Robert walked you through some of the onboard inclusions. I'll take you through a little bit of the experience inclusions that really add to your value-packed experience when you're in Antarctica. So the first thing that comes included is, of course, your expedition team. They really are your experts. They're your hosts, both on board when we're doing our exploring in the small explorer boats, and when we are ashore as well. And it might seem like a funny point to bring up, but our expedition leaders, assistants, the coordinators, science coordinators, and even some of our lecturers are all for full-time employees. Why that matters? In the expedition world, it's quite often that, some of these science coordinators, expedition team members might hop from company to company, season after season. Kind of whoever they get the best contract with is who they go for. But what's very special about Hurtigruten's expedition team is most of them are full-time employees. They are committed to the Hurtigruten experience, to the company, and this makes for such a great and seamless experience, for our guests season after season, year after year. We have over 350 expedition team members from around the world, both from US and Canada as well. And they are educated professionals in their own specialty, whether it be ornithology, if they want to go even further to penguinology, the specialists in specifically penguins for a place like Antarctica, going into polar history, marine biology. There's lots of opportunity for us to be seeing different whale species. They're all there to bring a different specialty to the table and, really enhance that educational experience of what it means to travel down in Antarctica. And of course, they all come highly trained in polar survival. We have certain, rules and regulations and tests that we need to accomplish before we are actually allowed to sail down there. And our expedition team goes through all of that prior to each season. Now, the gear that you're going to need for an Antarctic adventure, you heard Robert mention that we do provide you with the wind and water resistant expedition jacket. Our current brand is Helly Hansen, and this is something that you will receive on board. And it is also a souvenir for you to take home at the end of the voyage as well. And we size you for these on board because the important thing for dressing for expedition is layering. You want to bring a lot of those, kind of thin merino wool layers that you can add onto or remove as you get more or less active throughout the expedition. We also provide you with the Hurtigruten muck boots. Again, we size you for these on board. This boot is required in a place like Antarctica because we can't allow guests ashore with their own footings or footwear because we can't have any risk of anything falling off of your own footwear and being introduced to Antarctica. So whether that be shoelaces, fur, fleece, anything like that, because yes, it could happen that a penguin would want to chew on your shoelace. So this is why we have regulated boots that we use in this destination. We also provide our guests with the use of our trekking poles. So if we are doing a landing where there's any, icy conditions or maybe some rocky footings, our expedition team brings the gear ashore for our use, and they bring them back to the ship at the end of the landing. And keeping with sustainability, we have no single-use plastics on board Hurtigruten. So we provide everybody with a reusable water bottle. Again, your souvenir to bring home at the end of the trip. And for any of our optional activities, whether it's kayaking, snowshoeing, we also provide you with all of that gear as well. You can see these boats above. You might know them as Zodiacs. We like to call them our explorer boats. So these are our tenders, if you will, that take our guests ashore, and we can also go out and do some exploratory cruising with them as well. And people are always quite curious to know, how is it getting in and out of these boats? What's it like? The beauty thing is the Hurtigruten Expeditions hull, which is unique to us. The side of our ships fold out flat so that they are water level for our explorer boats to pull up to. There are always helping hands on the platform and in the boat to make sure that our guests are safely getting in and out. We like to equate it to a real life situation of getting in and out of the bathtub. That could be sort of an equal comparison. So you hear me use the term landing. So what does that even mean? And it's a very informal term. You might be used to the larger ship experience where you would pull up to a city or dock and go off and do, some onshore exploration, either by bus or maybe walking tours, that type of thing. When you're in a place like Antarctica, there is none of that infrastructure in place. So we are essentially using land to pull our explorer boats up to disembark our guests, and we will explore the land with everything that is naturally there, whether it just be, the rocks, the snow, the ice, or the local wildlife. So how do we do these landings? We break everybody up into a boat group, and you stay with this boat group for the entire voyage. And we move you through a seamless schedule, so that everybody has equal time ashore, equal time out in the boats if we're doing scenic cruising. And you know roughly within sort of that 15 to 20-minute window of when your group is going to be going out. So you don't need to worry about putting on your gear first thing in the morning, if your group is not due to go out for maybe a couple hours later. So before we as guests ever go ashore to explore, our expedition team will go ashore first. They will sort of have an overall look of what that landing site has to offer that day, and they will set up different cones and flags around the landing site, kind of creating a barrier for where it's safe as guests to be exploring and walking around. Of course, we always want to be cognizant of, the wildlife that is around us, or any, unsafe conditions, especially when it is during, breeding season and nest building season of the penguins. We don't want to be interrupting that. We don't as well want to be walking all over their nest site. So this is why it's important for our expedition team to go ashore first, and they actually set up the landing site before we ever step foot on land. So some of the types of landings that we might encounter in Antarctica, we may get a dry landing where we are visiting an active research center. So this particular one was one we had visited on my voyage, which was for Nadsky. They are a Ukrainian research base, and they're actually home to the southernmost bar in the world. They make their own vodka here, so when we go ashore and did a tour of their facilities, you can pay for a small fee to try their vodka and say that you have had a drink in the southernmost place in the world. So we might get these situations where we do have a small pier or dock that we can pull our boat up to disembark for exploration. Another very common one is a wet landing or a beach landing. And this is where you can see why those boots come in handy, because it does require that our guests step into a foot or two of polar water in order to get in or out of the Explorer boat. And especially at the beginning of the Antarctic season, where we have lots and tons of snow and ice, we encounter the polar landings. So much so that the expedition team might actually have to, bring their ice picks and shovels and carve out a set of stairs into the snow and ice in order for our guests to be able to safely disembark the Explorer boats. So we also get the opportunity to use our boats for some ice cruising. And I tried to intersperse my own photos as much as possible throughout the presentation. This is one of them. We went out and did some ice cruising in Port Charcot, because there were just so many different shapes and sizes of icebergs at our disposal. And it really brings a whole different type of feeling to the experience when you get to be that much closer and at water level to the ice. And yes, if we're lucky, we might have a close encounter with some whales. We can never guarantee this, of course, but this lucky boat group that was out prior to my group did have an encounter with some fin whales and some right whales when they were out. And of course, we also have some amazing opportunities just to do some ice cruising right from our own ship. As Robert pointed out, we have so many different observation areas on board. That's one thing we really pride ourselves at Hurtigruten. So this was just a beautiful day. On those beautiful sunny days like this, our hotel manager likes to surprise our guests and maybe host an barbecue where we can experience some of those gourmet hot dogs up on the top deck under the amazing sunny elements and surrounded by the ice. No, this was one of those opportunities of, you know, the flexible scheduling and kind of diverting the day's plan to work in a new opportunity. This was an iceberg that wasn't originally in our sailing path, but our captain happened to see it on his GPS and decided to divert the course of the ship so that we could get an up close look at this. Now, this iceberg has a name to it. It's A68A. And actually, just a couple months ago, had completely melted and dissipated to nothing. But at the time that we saw this in March 2020, this was one of the largest icebergs that is in the Antarctic area. It had broken off of the ice shelf, and it's large enough that you can actually land a plane on it. So again, it's something like we will never experience this particular iceberg ever again in Antarctica, but that's the beauty of expedition is changing the course up a little bit, you know, to have these opportunities, these once in a lifetime memories for expedition. And we also love our guests to, you know, connect with their inner explorer in a little bit of a different way. So I'd love to know, you know, you can maybe shoot us a message in the chat if you would ever participate in the polar plunge. And we say you haven't done the polar plunge until your head is fully under the water. But don't worry, we do give you the certificate to prove that you did it, something I think that is frame worthy when you come home. And if you are on one of our voyages towards the end of the season, we have the opportunity to attempt to cross the Antarctic Circle, which is about 66 degrees south. So we had this chance on my voyage, and again got the certificate to prove that we did it. And on these voyages, we are paid a visit by King Neptune. And King Neptune wants to bless us with calm seas for the rest of our voyage. But in order to do so, we as guests have to pass his test. And that test is having polar water dumped down your back. Of course, this is completely voluntary, but our guests have such a riot and a hoot by participating in this. So I felt I needed to get the ball rolling in the test, and I put myself out there first to pass the test for the ship. And lo and behold, we were blessed with calm seas for the rest of the voyage. Now, some of the optional activities you can participate in Antarctica is sea kayaking. Again, another great way to get a little bit more up close and personal. And hey, if you are lucky, you might get to see some whale life closer and the icebergs especially. Snowshoeing, another great option. And again, for snowshoeing in our next activity, camping, we do need a good base of snow in order to actually operate these activities. So I always recommend, if you have any interest in potentially participating in those, to go towards the beginning, middle of the season. And yes, you can even sleep overnight in Antarctica. And what's sort of neat about this is our ship will come in and help everybody disembark for the evening. So we can do a maximum of 30 guests for camping. And then the ship will disappear for the evening. So it's just your group of 30. We have our 2 expedition team members. And depending on the conditions, the weather, they might take you for a separate private hike that evening. Maybe we're camping around a penguin colony and we can learn a little bit more about them up close. And these optional activities are things that we book only once on board, because of course we do need Mother Nature's cooperation in order to be able to operate them. So we never know, unfortunately, in advance how often we can do these activities per voyage, because we will make the decision based on the weather when we're in destination. Now, you heard me use the term IATO. They're the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators, and they are essentially what regulate us while we are in Antarctica. And they can actually prevent any operator from being down in Antarctica if we don't follow certain rules. Some of those rules are the size or capacity of our ships. So if you are on a ship that is more than 500 passengers, terms, that ship is essentially not allowed to have their guests step foot onto the continent of Antarctica. You need to be on a ship that has a 500 or fewer capacity in order to be able to step foot on land. So that's where our MS Fridtjof Nansen and Amundsen come into play, is that category 2, and we have access to 25 different landing sites. And then we do have a smaller ship, Fram, who caps herself at 200 or fewer because she goes to the sub-Antarctic island of South Georgia. We also follow biosecurity rules. So you heard me talk about, not contaminating the continent with sort of foreign matter. So the first thing we do with our guests before they ever go ashore is send them through our vacuum station. So you'd bring your outer clothing layer to our vacuum station and just remove anything that might be stuck to it. It could be lint, it could be pet hair, it could be, maybe rocks or small stones that are stuck in, the turned up pant leg or something like that. We also walk through a disinfectant before we ever step into the Explorer boat to go ashore. And then as we come back, we walk through I call it a boot car wash, where we clean off any remnants of anything that's been collected from our boots while we are ashore. So again, it's avoiding cross-contamination between the ship and between the continent. And a very important rule that we need to be following when in Antarctica is maintaining a safe distance from wildlife. And that official measurement is 5 meters or 15 feet. You can see these guests have done a remarkable job at maintaining their distance. But sometimes you do get the odd penguin encounter where they have crossed the barrier. They might come up to you. They're very curious. They're not scared of humans. So we just let them take control and, just enjoy the situation. They do eventually get bored of you and wander off. So just to finish off before a quick video, so when to go to Antarctica, there's 3 different seasons. The sailing season in general is sort of end of October through to March. So the early season, that's when we get lots of snow and ice. And so photographer's dream, we kind of call that start of the season. It's also the mating and nesting period for the penguins. So you may actually see them building their nests. And if you're there towards the end of November, actually seeing the eggs in their nests. And we start to see the whales return because the feeding grounds are becoming more populated at that time of year as well. When we get into that mid-season, December, January, if you have the hope of seeing the penguin chicks themselves, this is the time frame to go. They start to hatch mid to late December, and through to January is a great time to spot these. And we do get our longest days and our warmest temperatures around this time frame as well. So great opportunity for amazing sunsets and sunrises. And when we get to the end of the season, we hope that the sea ice has receded, has melted enough that we can cross below the Antarctic Circle. So this is the time of year we make those attempts. And this is peak whale sighting season as well. So great time for orcas, minkies, humpbacks, krill are at their utmost at this time in order for, hey, a potential experience like these guests are having with our humpback whales. So I'm just going to play a quick video to finish things off for the Antarctic inspiration.
All I can say is, wow. I have a great comment from one of our audience members, Sylvie. She said, I think this is an amazing option to offer incentive winners with the mind frame of wanting to travel with fewer people and in areas that are less traveled. And, you know, you've certainly shown us so much about it today. We have quite a few questions. We will try to get to as many as we can. And I am going to take us over a little bit because we've got a very engaged audience. So let's get to it if the both of you are okay with that. Lot of questions around the seas, the rough seas, and Drake's Passage, which through. So
That
maybe
that usually is a topic for discussion. So the Drake Passage, there's something in the industry known as either Drake Shake or Drake Lake. It's possible that you might experience both of them. I experienced both. We were Drake Shake going down and Drake Lake going back. And unfortunately, you can't pick or choose a sailing based on that. It may or may not happen whenever you go. I like to say that Antarctica is sort of the low hanging fruit, like the reward you've earned after crossing the Drake Passage. So we always just say, you know, if you are prone to seasickness or you're not sure if you're prone to seasickness, you know, bring the bands, bring the patches, your ginger tablets, whatever you think might get you through. Because yes, we very much could go through some rough Drake waters, but those ships are purpose built for it, so you don't have to worry there. But it is a possibility. And there's also the possibility that you just glide right through and it's completely like glass.
and then you're there.
Yes, exactly.
Another question relating to does this does this option work for an older demographic? What is the ideal health condition for cruisers? I mean, it appeared to me that it works for all ages, but love you to speak on that.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Barbara. The only actual age limit for Antarctica as a regulation is you have to be 5 years of age or older. But the beauty of Antarctica is you could be as active or inactive as you're capable of doing. Because when we do our landing sites, there's usually 2 or 3 different options for our guests to explore. If you wish to go hiking up the mountain, you know, to see a monument or just get a beautiful view, that's an option. But maybe you choose the option where you're just going to walk a few feet and you're going to admire and enjoy observing the penguin colony. And things like kayaking and snowshoeing and camping, you don't have to do those. Those are optional activities. The only thing we ask from a health perspective is that you do have a good basic health, you know, for this destination. We do require our guests to fill out a health survey when traveling specifically to Antarctica because of the fact that we don't have immediate access to things like hospitals and, you know, emergency services. We do have a doctor and a couple nurses on board and a small medical facility, but again, you just have to keep that in mind. But we find when people are booking Antarctica, they're very aware that this is a remote place. There are different, you know, challenges to operation down there. Like I have seen on my own expedition, I was introduced to a guest that was 87 years old. This was like the last place she needed to travel on Earth before she was satisfied. So really, the only restriction is on the bottom end, 5 years of age or older.
Fabulous. A question, give you another one. And the planners are getting into the granular details here. As a couple of people ask about the boat groups, the expedition vessels. And are you able to choose, first of all, how many per ship? And are you able to choose who would go out in each boat? Do they have control over that? Kind of like the
No, so the number of boat groups and number of people within each boat group will vary depending on the capacity of the ship at that time, because sometimes we might sail 3/4 full, sometimes it might be full, so it will vary that way. But you're assigned the group, the boat group at the beginning of the trip, and you stay with that boat group. Not to worry if people are traveling as groups or as friends, we put you all together. And one thing with Hurtigruten is we tend to have a very international guest mix on board as well. So we will pair up those German speaking passengers with each other in a boat group. We'll keep the English speaking passengers together in a boat group. So traveling with friends and family and business, corporate, anything like that, you all get assigned within the same group of each other, so you can all have the experiences ashore together.
So I think it might be important to also add, as it relates to traveling as part of a group amongst other that are non-group members, yes, we follow those guidelines. But I think it's also important to highlight that when you're chartering the entire vessel, you have an exclusive use of the ship itself. There's a lot more flexibility when it comes to making those determinations and who goes where and how do we group and stuff like that. There will be a fine level of decision making on the ship side based on what do you like, height, weight, and things like that that might hinder. But there's a lot more flexibility that you have when you have the entire vessel to yourself, as far as who goes together, who goes, who doesn't go, and things like that.
Okay, I'm going to include a couple more questions because this is just so interesting. What has been the average size incentive group that you tend to end up with?
So we've got a combination. We do, it's a perfect segue to talk about how we do and how we work when it comes to the MICE sector. I would say the average size group, it ranges between 50 to 75 cabins. And of course, we have the full ship vessels, the full ship charters. One hinder or one obstacle that planners have encountered in the past, because Antarctica, as unique and as new to a lot of people, it's been there, and it's on radars, it's on lists, but it's the number of guests that can actually bring because of the capacity restrictions that Kristen mentioned earlier. And there really is no point in taking everyone all the way down to the end of the earth and just cruise by. When it comes to the full ship charter, we do limit the capacity to 500 on the actual charter itself. So it's a combination of both. So we do anything between 50 to 75. I've had smaller groups in the 25 to 30 cabin range, but it really just varies. It's not common for it to be that many large groups. It's mostly the medium size between the 50 and the 75.
Which is ideal for an incentive group. We have another question from Janet. How has the Hurtigruten experience changed with COVID-19?
Well,
Yeah,
like any, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, Robert.
Like any other cruise operator, we have been, carefully following and evaluating all the different protocols and how to best adapt. As Kristen mentioned earlier, we've had our very own safety and hygiene standards even before the pandemic broke. Obviously, we're now following this closer, and it's a constantly evolving situation where we've made some modifications as it relates to the onboard experience. One thing to mention is we're not going to be doing buffets for the most part. But I can't say that it has really changed entirely because of what we were already doing to begin with in terms of preserving safety and ensuring that every guest was safe. A health question or something we've been doing for a long time. But like everybody else, we're constantly following. The thing that really hinders us the most right now is the ongoing restrictions and different bans going into that everyone has different requirements for us to follow. Kirsten, you were going to add something else too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of, the onshore experience for Antarctica, that really doesn't change, because the beauty of this destination is we're not dealing with a country's, port regulations, tour buses, tour guides, anything like that. So that, other than us having less people in the Zodiac and spacing you out so you can get the social distancing, the onshore experience doesn't change in a destination. And I think that's why we are seeing so much more interest in the polar regions, especially because we don't have the local city country restrictions with local destination management companies and things like that. We're the only ship there at our landing site on that day, and we're already spaced out with our boat groups and everything. So that's the beauty thing of just the destination itself. But we're always updating our health and safety protocols. Hurtigruten.com is a great resource. There is an entire website devoted to health and safety that you're more than welcome to have a look at and keep up to date with what we're doing.
But we definitely had to make some changes and implement new procedures and safety protocols for sure, like everybody else.
Yeah, like everybody else, exactly.
Yeah.
So we did have one more question, Robert, that we wanted to ask. Can I get that poll question up there?
Oh yeah, let's do the poll.
Okay, everyone. Are you considering an expedition cruise for one of your incentive programs in 22 to 24? Yes or not yet? And the answers are, wow, okay, a quarter of the people on this call are saying yes by 2024, over a quarter, and not yet for the remainder. So
And
that is exciting.
it's very delightful, and it's very fulfilling and reassuring, because we understand, how precious time is for everyone these days. And the benefit, or the goal for you to come on today was to learn more. I was sitting here, and as I was listening and hearing Kirsten, and you always hear a picture says more than 1,000 words, but man, all of your words painted a lot of pictures. And if you can put that into perspective for all of us here today, and the audience on this webinar, that was like 45 minutes at most of all unique, new, off the beaten path, things like going to places no one has ever been to before, whether it's contact with the wildlife. It's just so much to offer that it really just makes it even more exciting for us to be able to make ourselves available to you. Glad to hear that 26 of you are considering that. I'm not going to repeat a lot of what has been said in terms of who we are, our trajectory in this sector, our experience, the fact that we have state-of-the-art, brand new, purposely built expeditions. But really, what I really pride myself in saying, we're easy to do business with, and we're easy to charter with. There was, I believe, 18% of you that have charter ships in the past. Chartering a vessel with Hurtigruten is a really simple, hassle-free experience. Some things to highlight and mention for your knowledge is, unlike traditional cruising in whether the premium or the contemporary category, on any of our ships, on any of our cruises, we don't have things like onboard revenue guarantees that add on a significant amount of risk. You are going to encounter typical risks such as the non-refundables, once you sign. But aside from that, it's a really attractive way to impress and reward in this day and age more than ever before. And I would be delighted, along with my team, to be able to assist and to help you further qualify. It's exciting, it's unique, but we understand it's not for everyone. It needs to be qualified, it needs to be tailored, it needs to be adapted. But I can assure you, we've got a great deal of experience and track record in making that happen. So I would love to be in contact with some of you. We want to be that partner. If you're looking for an expedition cruise, or if you're looking for a cruise in the future, our pricing is extremely attractive. Remember when I said earlier, we pride ourselves in offering a premium all-inclusive experience. There's a lot of value that is involved. We're not saying that we're offering a cheap product, by no means. It's extremely, extremely attractive and affordable, even a full ship charter. I will leave that for those of you that want to follow up. I will keep that a little bit in reserve, so that you can really, really be pleased once we talk and once I tell you what something like this could look like. And in terms of the actual experience, it's customizable. Whether you have a large block or you have the full ship charter, the benefits of chartering a vessel, in addition to now providing an incredible destination. The value, the impact of having your own ship customized. You can brand every aspect, whether the bar, whether the drink, even some of the lounges, even some of the names on board goes way, way too far. On the screen, you have how to get a hold of us. On the bottom left, you've got my telephone number that gives direct access. I say it, I mean it, and it's true. I have a 24/7 policy. I enjoy what I do. I love my work. I love my job. So talking to you on a Saturday or a Sunday would be very perfectly normal for me. And also you can have access to me via email, whether it's my direct email at the bottom, robert.ko@hurtigruten.com, or our dedicated inbox for charters and incentives at Hurtigruten. We have already in the handout sections, you've got a list of 2022 dates that are available both for full ship charter as well as block charters. You will find that on that document, you've got just the chronological order, the starting point and the ending point, the embarkation and disembarkation port. Please contact me, go through it by regions. If something gets your attention other than Antarctica, I will be happy to send you pricing. We have instant ready to go pricing, and we've done something really unique for 2022 when it comes to full ship charters. We have a really truly one full ship charter comprehensive pricing that includes our premium drink package included. So you can provide a luxury experience really for a fraction of what you would normally charter if you had a ship of this category, of this size, for your next incentive program.
Terrific. I will leave it on that note, everyone. Get those RFPs to Robert by June 15th, and we are raffling off a $200 gift card too. So I have a feeling lots of people on this call will be reaching out to you. I have learned so much today about Hurtigruten, and a very exciting presentation, Kristen. Thank you so much. Robert, a pleasure to work with you again. And everyone, I hope you have a great rest of the afternoon.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you,
Thank you
Kristen,
again.
and great afternoon to everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.